our second speaker today, Dr. Johanes Priyatma. That's how we pronounce his name. He got his undergraduate degree in mathematics from Gadjah Mada University, and his master degree on computer science from Ateneo de Manila Graduate School of Business, and from University Putra, Malaysia, his Ph.D. in Graduate School of Management on Management Information Systems. And Dr. Eko is now the rector of Sanata Dharma University and chairman of the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities in Asia Pacific. His expertise, among others, on relational database design, analysis and design of information systems, and analysis of e-government using actor network theory. Dr. Eko will deliver the topic continuing what Dr. Go has started now on the Indonesian context. So the topic that Dr. Eko would like to deliver is on student formation through online environment in Indonesian context. So Dr. Eko, the time is yours. Let's give our applause, virtual applause to Dr. Eko to welcome him.
Pak Eko, excuse me, could you unmute your...
Sorry, I'm sorry, I forgot to use my microphone. Once again, I thank you very much for Ibu Mega, who has introduced me to all participants. Good morning, everyone who are joining this webinar. I'm very happy to have this kind of opportunity. And first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Hope and United Board for inviting me as one of the speakers in this very interesting and contextual webinar. Before I start my presentation, allow me to share my screen. I hope you have already my screen, and as you can see on your screen, the topic that was asked to me is about student formation through online environment in Indonesian context. Because I'm the second presenter and Dr. Johnny Go has presented some basic element of formation in online environment, then my job is much easier. And even I finally realized that some of his notions, some of his idea is almost the same with the one that I will share to all of you. When we look at to this theme or topic, for me, who has a background in science and mathematics, this topic is big. I mean, it has many issues related to student formation in the online environment, especially when we also include the Indonesian context. Therefore, to simplify the topics and to help you all participants following my presentation easier, I broke up this big theme into several questions as listed here. And basically, my presentation will be just set of answers to all these questions, though I didn't make my answer following this question, because all these question is interrelated to each other. Let me start with what is there any problem? Did Ibu Meka, could you see my presentation? Because I just got information from Prauda.
We cannot see the second screen yet, your questions, Dr. Eka. So yes, now
Can you see?
right for the questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry for some technical problem. Yes, I broke up that theme because for me that topic is complex and big into several questions, and then basically my presentation will be answers to all these questions. So let me start with the first reflection, the first understanding to what we are having right now. What really has changed us during this pandemic? Technically speaking, many of our daily life and campus life has changed a lot. We have to wash our hands regularly. We have to wear masks. We have to avoid gathering and stop visiting others. And the most difficult part for me is to stop visiting some interesting places. However, if we think deeply, that kind of new attitude of new daily life actually is no problem at all. Because the cause of this new habit is that we are now prohibited to interact or communicate physically, intensively. And now ICT takes place, play its role to mediate us for our interaction and for our communications. But when we are trying to use this ICT as a new medium for our communication and interaction, finally, we realize that our physical interaction is so meaningful. Its richness cannot be easily replaced by ICT-mediated interaction. And as a result, I'm sorry, there is a feedback. And as a result, we cannot enjoy our online learning. What I mean by we, it does not mean that it is for our student only, but also include our lectures, our professor, especially those who have been senior in our campus. It is not only our student, but both of our student and lecturers cannot easily enjoy our online learning. Why? Because the online learning or ICT mediated interaction has removed some important and meaningful values of our life. Though I also believe that ICT, as has been mentioned by Father Jonico, provide multisensory and also multi-platform for communication. And even it also facilitates a more efficient but remove physical and even remove physical and time boundary. However, as I mentioned before, it cannot fully replace some essential values of direct or non-mediated interactions. When we look at this given table, all of you can see that some very essential values like authenticity, permanence, stability, formality, and physical health is very important and very essential, but it could be a threat if we are entering or we are using online environment. The main question we have, if those important values such as authenticity, permanency, and physical health is essential in our whole person educations, then how we should understand this kind of reality, how to negotiate our action and how to reconstruct our learning so that those opportunities offered by ICT or online environment could be optimally used, and at the same time, how to minimize, how to control all possible threats produced by online environment. But before doing that, we should understand why this ICT or online environment produce equally both to opportunities and also threats. For me, there are at least three phenomena that characterize the trend of ICT development, namely convergence, intelligence, and disintermediation. Among these three phenomena, disintermediation is the most influential one to our whole person education concern. And disintermediation means decreasing role or function of those who play as mediator or agent or bridge or link to connect or facilitate interaction or transaction between two parties. When I mention bridge in this context, it should not be considered as the same bridge that Father Jonico just mentioned in his presentation. Because of this disintermediations, nowadays we do not need postmen anymore. We do not need bank teller. We do not need tourist and hotel agency. But when we continue or we imagine the next development of ICT and we reflect our own position as a lecturer or as an educator, then we will finally come up with the new awareness that basically lecturers and educators play also its role as a mediator. And therefore, all of us as an educator might be irrelevant in the near future. So it is not only about pandemic, a global pandemic, that has put ourselves in a very difficult situation. The development ICT itself, whether it is in the pandemic or it is not in the pandemic, we are in the position to be replaced if we could not find a new role in this ICT environment. And this intermediation phenomenon will intensify and cover more and more sectors as ICT become smarter due to the advanced development of artificial intelligence. So the gadget we have, the smartphone we have, from day to day become smarter and cleverer, even maybe someday will be smarter than us. And other related phenomenon to contribute to the intense disintermediation is the convergence, where many functions could be done using single technology product such as smartphone. That is why the main usage of smartphone now is no longer to function as a phone, but instead for taking photos, playing videos, and making many kind of transactions. Because many functions, many tasks could be done using just single gadget. That's the phenomena of conversion. Now, the next question to answer is, are those changes in our context, whether in the pandemic context and ICT context, essential to our concern on whole person education, and why? Luckily, Father Johnny has mentioned it is not about the digital environment or online environment. It is about how to design so that our design for the whole person education maximize the potential of ICT and how to minimize its threat in implementing whole person education. The problem we have when we look at our online environment to implement our concern on whole person education is that this environment is relatively new to most of us. But what I mean new is not the online environment in reality new. This online environment has been with us for the last 20 years. The problem, while we are having pandemic, we are forced to live this new ecosystem, this new environment. And suddenly we feel that we are not ready, we have problem, we are not familiar, but we have no choice. We have to use this new environment as the only platform, as the only system that we should use to continue our service, to educate, and to prepare our students. Therefore, therefore, the most important thing when we are talking, when we are discussing the whole person education in this online environment should be start from the strong framework to implement whole person education. Fortunately, what I mentioned here has been also mentioned by Father Joniko. I propose this framework. First, I formulated like this: the more indirect is the better. Why? Because some of us may believe that implementing whole person education is a matter of direct nurturing in physical ecosystem, while we believe that whole person education will be more effective if it is indirect through some interesting and meaningful learning activities. If we use this kind of framework, then it is not appropriate to expect that our concern on whole person education can only be done after pandemic finish. And we start doing the same thing by nurturing or telling our students to do this, to do that. And by using this framework, as Father Joniko mentioned, it is no problem at all actually to only have online environment, because the principle is very clear. If it is more indirect, then it is better for our student formation. That's why since 5 years ago, we in Sanata Dharma also promoted the notion of cybernetic space as the most appropriate space for whole person education, because we are fully aware that we cannot stop the growth and the strong contribution, the strong features, the relevant features of ICT, and we have to maximize its role in educating our students. But as a Jesuit university, we have been developing our campus in such a way. Campus is it's a good place for our students to have physical interaction through many kind of activities like sport, art performance, music performance, and so on. And therefore, we in Sanata Dharma propose or start doing to improve our capacity in developing the so-called cybernetic space. What we mean by cybernetic space, it is an integrative view of our reality as a combination of physical and virtual space. By using this kind of perspective, then we will maximize both our physical reality and at the same time our virtual reality. However, due to pandemic of COVID-19, starting last semester, we have to pause our commitment to develop our cybernetic space. So the new football field, the new auditorium, the new facilities we develop in a physical space right now cannot be used for a while. But we hope later on, when we can finish our pandemic, we will try to use it again as part of cybernetic space to maximize our student formation. Now, the third point in my proposed framework is that the whole person education or student formation should be integrated with daily learning. It is not enough if the way we understand student formation is totally separate from their daily activities in class. And therefore, later on, I will mention that in Sanata Dharma, as part of Jesuit University, we will implement the so-called Ignatian pedagogy. Now, next, based on these 3 points in my proposed framework, the next question to answer is, how do we reconstruct our learning from our online learning from the perspective of whole person education? As Father Jonico mentioned, the most important thing is design. No problem. The system we use, either physical or virtual, but the most important thing is how to design it. First of all, when we are using online environment to design our class so that it has enough concern on whole person education, we should start first change our orientation. And many times, I always say this in Sanata Dharma to all my colleagues in Sanata Dharma, that the most important thing is not on how to teach, but on how to facilitate students to learn well. So the focus should be to our student. Therefore, our online learning should be developed to support independent learning. But we also realize that the independent learning will be effective if we employ group project-based learning or case-based learning. Why is like that? Because the way I understand the problem in improving our student formation is that they depend a lot to their peers. As mentioned by Father Jonico, learning is never an individual endeavor. It is always social endeavor. So the way we design our online learning should be based on an activity that will invite our students to collaborate, to have a collaboration activity with their classmate or with their peer. So the setting we are developing in implementing online learning should be a collaborative learning. By using this collaborative approach, we are hoping that our students will have enough opportunity to understand themselves better, to have opportunity to work together, to respect others, and there are many values, good values, to prepare themselves to enter a job market. Now, it is time to reflect the problem, the realities we have in implementing our online learning environment. First, for me, pandemic of COVID-19 could be positioned as a trigger and also a speed up to implement cybernetic space, though for a while we cannot fully use our physical space. But it is good time it is right time to enter the new kind of learning, though this kind of learning has been there for a long time. But this is a very good time because we have to use that kind of learning environment. However, we have to realize that most of our students, especially in Indonesian context, are not ready to embrace this learning because most of them, they are not ready to have independent learning. Why? The way I understand it like this, because especially in Indonesian context, most of our students are rooted from agricultural society, and therefore learning in general is essential in their for. These realities bring consequence that togetherness and real social bonding are very essential to the learning performance. So I feel when our students joining online class, they feel alone, and the way they enjoy the learning process is very difficult because their learning activity, I think, they feel like it's very dry and very lonely. And lastly, for me, character building especially happen in social setting, and therefore learning dynamic in online learning should be designed to facilitate intimate and meaningful interaction among students. Finally, my last presentation is about reflection to what we have done in Sanata Dharma. Maybe this point will be meaningful and can be said to all participants. But actually, I cannot stop reflecting what we are doing in Sanata Dharma because actually we are struggling. We are struggling not only to deliver our class optimally, but we are struggling how to have student formation in this pandemic situation. First, we have to be...
your screen, Pak Eko, the next screen.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
We have a pandemic situation and we have to adopt online learning. Our commitment to implement Ignatian pedagogy, because as Jesuit University, we inherit Ignatian pedagogy that has orientation to prepare our students to have three competence, three attitude, that is competence, conscience, and compassion. And therefore, we have been doing some activities. First, we promote, I call it online learning spirituality. So we have a conference, we have a seminar to reflect what kind of attitude, understanding, awareness to embrace this online situation. And therefore, we have to maintain our intimate engagement, and we have to develop awareness that is new awareness to consider that it is not campus anymore, but house is our new avenue for education and growth. This kind of awareness is very important because sometimes we forget that our student is now at their house, no longer they are in campus, and house so far never been conceptualized as a place for learning. And therefore, we should develop the so-called pandemic sensitive learning. And therefore, it should not only be developed based on online learning characteristic, but should also be based on new understanding that house is new, house and its environment is new learning situation or condition. Of course, we did also some technical improvement, like improve our existing learning management system, and therefore we have several activities to train our staff, to train our educators and lecturers, but all these things has has been done. But before doing these activities, we started with by talking with our students. So we initiated all this improvement by first listening to our student, and our preparation to fully develop online learning will be based on our understanding to our student problem and situation. Of course, we also improve our ICT infrastructure, and we keep improving our communication channel. And the new thing we are doing right now is developing digital television, because my struggle as the leader of this university is how to communicate better with our new student, with new situation. And therefore, digital television might be a good tool, a good facilitator that can improve our engagement to our student. That's all I can say this morning. I'm sorry if some of my presentation cannot easily be understood. And therefore, thank you for your attention. And I will be happy if you have questions or comment to my presentation and ideas. Thank you.